Hey guys, what is up? Spectre here, and I just wanted to talk about, I wanted to make a video talking about some of the concerns people have about Mass Effect Andromeda. This isn't scripted in any way, so if I ramble, please do forgive me. I'm also playing at the exact same time as I'm recording this. Um, One of the reasons that I wanted to make this video is that a lot of the videos that you're going to see online right now, from IGN, from GameSpot, from stuff like that, are from people who are not very far into the game, because there's an embargo from BioWare that you can only talk about the first 2 hours, apparently. I don't get my games from BioWare, so I don't have to adhere to that. So it says right there on the side, time played, 10 hours, 59 minutes, and 16 seconds. Yeah, so I've been playing this for quite a bit, and I can give you a bit more of a sense of stuff later on in the game, aside from coverage that you might have already seen. So, let's see. I honestly don't know where to start. First of all, the game, it takes a minute to really ramp up. So I'm not surprised that a lot of the reactions from the first 2 hours that you might have seen on in other places, I'm not surprised at their reactions. I kind of agree with them. This new game takes some warming up to, and I've had to go through that process as well. I guess I'll begin with the elephant in the room in terms of this game. Jesus, it is misty in here. In terms of this game so far, and that is the animations. The animations can be a bit janky, I'm not gonna lie. They're nowhere near as bad as a lot of the videos on the internet would have you believe. It's very easy to compile a bunch of mistakes to make them look bigger. You know, there's not insane animations every 5 seconds. It's here and there, and it is off-putting and immersion-breaking at times. Not every NPC is animated in a way that's laughable or just downright inexcusable all the time. There are some NPCs that look positively dead-eyed 24/7. That's just specifically that NPC, in my experience. And it's not indicative of the whole game. There are other NPCs that look incredibly animated. So I think that's worth stating because, yeah, like I said, compilation videos on the internet would have you believe otherwise, and I think that's a little bit unfair. A lot of people would also have you believe that the aliens are animated a lot better than the humans, and you know what, I would say in most cases yes, but there are some humans that are animated better than the aliens in this game, and vice versa. There are some aliens that aren't really animated very well. In my opinion, the Angara, the new race that you meet, their animations are really janky in compared to others. Some Turian animations are not that great, but it's a little hit or miss, I have to admit, but it's not a total failure like the internet might have you believe. And once you've been playing this game long enough, it sort of becomes part of the, like, you stop noticing it as much because it becomes part of the aesthetic, for better or worse. Most people would say worse, but I think it's a little bit better that after a while you kind of stop noticing it. But yeah, it just, and you know what, let's be completely honest, and this is not coming from a Mass Effect hater. I adore Mass Effect. If it were a series of movies, I would probably like it better than Star Wars, which is saying a hell of a lot for me personally. The animations have never been incredible in Mass Effect games. I'm sorry, they just haven't been. And again, that's not really a huge dig at them, but it's just, you know, I feel like we're creating a problem as if it wasn't there to begin with, and it's nothing new to seasoned Mass Effect players. So I just wanted to address that. They're not great, but they're not as terrible as the internet is making it seem, in a nutshell. Character-wise, I've heard a lot of criticisms of the characters in this game. And you know what? To me, that is the result of people who have kind of not accepted that this is not Mass Effect 3. I didn't like the characters in the beginning, I'll perfectly admit, but I know why. It was because, you know, when I met PB, the Asari that you meet, I was like, well, I don't like her as much as Liara, or, you know, I'd think of the other alien race equivalents to, by the way, if you see any frame loss or jankiness, that's the game. It's not the capture. But anyway, I'd compare them to their equivalents. So PB, I'd, compare her to Liara. But once you stop doing that and remember that you had 3 games to get to know those characters, you start to enjoy these characters a lot more. And it's not to say that these characters are bad. They're actually really great. I don't want to go into specifics because I don't want to, again, spoil stuff for people. But getting to know the side characters in this game has been really gratifying and interesting. A lot of them call back to, stuff from the original Mass Effect trilogy. Because, again, remember, these people were sort of frozen at the same time as all those things were taking place. So you'll find a lot of parallels. And, it's the kind of thing that'll make you smile when you hear them talk about it. And it's just, they are interesting on their own. So I do really like the squad mates in this game, and I really like getting to know them, which I didn't really care as much about in Mass Effect 1. And I'm going to compare Mass Effect Andromeda to Mass Effect 1, simply because while it makes sense to compare Mass Effect Andromeda to 3, because that's how we normally compare games to their predecessors, their immediate predecessors, I think that you need to compare this game narratively, in terms of the goals of this game. It's setting up a new, possibly, because they haven't even confirmed this, a new trilogy possibly, or a new story arc, which is what Mass Effect 1 did. So that's what I'm going to compare it to, in terms of its content and in terms of its goals narratively. So, speaking of content, there are 6 squad mates for you to recruit in this game. At first I was like, that's way too little. I didn't like that. I was very unhappy about that. But then I looked up, I thought, all right, let me, put my own money where my mouth is in terms of what I'm comparing it to, and I looked up Mass Effect 1 to remind myself how many squad mates there were. They were 6. So I think that's fair. It also makes sense to not want to, introduce a shit ton of new characters in the first installment in what could be a new trilogy or a new, it's a new story arc. They don't want to overwhelm you. So I can actually appreciate that. And, the quantity has nothing to do with the quality. And I think that the 6 characters that you can recruit are really cool characters. So the fact that there's 6 of them actually really doesn't bother me. And the fact that they all are fleshed out characters who, have lives before you meet them, and you actually get to, partake in loyalty missions that flesh that out. I really appreciate it. So the 6 is perfectly fine to me. Yeah. That just reminded me what I just did. Reminded me about the movement system. Some people have complained about the movement system in Mass Effect Andromeda. I think the movement system is vastly, and here I will compare it to Mass Effect 3 because it's a mechanic, a basic system mechanic, and not something narrative. I think the movement system in Mass Effect Andromeda is far more superior than that of Mass Effect 3. Mass Effect 3 was extremely clunky. It was annoying that you needed to hug a wall to jump over cover, that you needed to do all these things. In Mass Effect Andromeda, I'm free to juke, I'm free to, warp forward, warp backwards. I am free to jump whenever I want. It's just, and there's no cooldowns to either of those motions. You can chain them. It's just a lot more free. If you need to take cover, like right now, you walk up to it, it snaps in, you step away, you snap out. It's so much better than that arrow, telling you to dip into cover here, and accidentally rolling to the side and dipping into cover. It doesn't happen in this game, and I think that that's a vast improvement that not enough people are talking about. So I just wanted to really note that, because I really appreciate it. I think that it's so cool that you can run and not do that Commander Shepard shuffle run that he used to do. I can run, I can then do that, I can do, this is how I get around, basically. The quickest, just jetting forward and jumping, and jetting forward and jumping. And again, there's no cooldown. So it makes player movement a lot quicker, more fluid. It makes the combat more frenetic and, crazy. there's nothing more satisfying than jump jetting and then, you know, hitting people from above and then, you know, pounding the ground, which you can chain also. It's fun, and it adds to a little bit more experimentation. So in terms of the gameplay loop, what are you doing in this game? So far, this is how I've been managing the quest load. I have gone to the planets that you're assigned to, that the main storyline will take you through. You do their missions, and you're allowed to set up outposts at the ends of those missions, because you are the Pathfinder, you are, you know, resettling human civilization, and, you know, other Alliance alien civilizations. So basically you go to those planets and you do their missions, you make the settlement. The settlement will give you missions. Not only will it give you missions when you settle it originally, you can come back later and there'll be more stuff to do for them. And you can outfit them with different, you know, things. You'll have to choose what kind of outpost these are. Will they be militaristic? Will they be scientific in nature? That's up to you, and that choice matters. And then after that, you'll be making trips not only back to your ship to talk to your crew, you'll be making trips back to the Nexus, which is sort of your citadel. Full disclosure on that, it is nowhere near as large as the Citadel, but there is a narrative reason. Again, I am not going to spoil anything, but let's just say it didn't get built according to plan. And that is the reason that it is not the same size. Some people will be upset by that, but I kind of like it. It sort of links it to the player. You know, it's the beginning for this insane structure, just like it's the beginning for you and for this new story. So I can actually kind of appreciate that in a narrative sense. So basically, after doing missions on the planets themselves, then within the settlements themselves, then on the Nexus, because the Nexus will give you missions as well, I'll go back, talk to my crew, and then we'll do the same thing all over again. And so there'll be more to talk about with my crew, and more people to interface with on the Nexus, and more missions. And that's basically how I've been managing the very impressive, actually, quest load that they give you. You know, on Kotaku, they were kind of discussing how overwhelming it was. I think if you manage it in this fashion, the way that I am, it's a little less overwhelming. In terms of weapons, inventory, crafting, and things like that, crafting is part of the game. You have to find the ingredients you need to create blueprints. You go to a research center, you know, create those blueprints, or you create the weapons themselves. And the same goes for armor, but there are merchants on the Nexus, and you can just buy everything if you really want to. And you can completely ignore the crafting if you really wanted to. I'd recommend a little bit of a mix of both, but that's just how I've been doing things so far. The armor and weapons has sort of gone back the way of Mass Effect 1, where they were separate items rather than you going to that spot on your ship and just picking out almost whole you know, suits of N7 armor. I kind of like that. You can't change items on the fly. You need to do so at a loadout station or in the Tempest in your ship. The ship itself, I miss the Normandy so much. There's a model of the Normandy on your ship, and it actually made me smile. But the Tempest is actually a really cool ship. It's smaller than the Normandy, but not in a limiting way. You don't feel like they cheapened out. You just feel like they took the unnecessary space out of the Normandy and made that sort of made it just sort of smaller and more efficient in the form of the Tempest. You know, there's no elevators that take you to a loading screen. There's none of that. It's just it's a lot more efficient and it's smaller, and it's really cool actually. It's a nice ship. And you could just explore it and interface with, you know, all the different NPCs who are there, and it progresses in much the same way. Where, you know, after a certain amount of missions, you have more to talk about with your crew, and, you know, they're interesting. And they sort of interact with each other in a very Mass Effect 3-ish way. You know, I really feel like they hit their stride in terms of NPC interaction, you know, like how you could have even parties on the Citadel in Mass Effect 3, stuff like that. That's kind of continued through to Andromeda, and I really enjoy that. Yeah, so will you enjoy this if you're a Mass Effect fan? You most definitely will, but you need to realize when you're playing it that you are not playing Mass Effect 3, 1, 2, or 3, you know, and for Mass Effect fans that might be hard because you're invested in those characters, you're invested in that story, in that person that you're playing as. Go into this with the mindset that you are playing with new characters in a new space, with a different narrative. If you're not already a fan of the Mass Effect universe and this is going to be your first experience, personally, you know what? I think you'll have a vastly different experience from me. I'm a huge Mass Effect fanatic. I absolutely adore everything about the game and the universe. So I can't really speak to that, but I think that there's a lot here for people who've never played a Mass Effect game before either. I think there's a lot to enjoy. There's still the, you know, sprawling storylines. There's still these huge worlds, and there's still diverse characters. There's still the things that that Mass Effect fans love, and I think that newcomers will grow to love as well. So I would say that I do think that there's something here for people who aren't already huge Mass Effect fans. And again, for those who are, I think there's a lot to be found here for you too. And I think I'll wrap this up here because this has been a really long video, but there's a lot of concerns about this game ahead of its release, and I wanted to address some of them as someone who's played past the embargo period and who's played past the preview period on EA Access. So again, I'm enjoying my time with it. It is not perfect, but no Mass Effect game has been except Mass Effect 2. But yeah, it's great. It has its faults, but it's great. It is definitely worth at least checking out, and please don't let the videos that are online sway you from that so far, because honestly, the animation thing, it's annoying, but you can get past it, and there's a lot more in this game past that. There's a lot more depth to it. And that's about it. If you have any other questions about something I didn't talk about, feel free to comment them below, and of course I'll get to them as I always try to. And that's it. And as always, thanks for watching, guys.